In the dark early morning hours of July 25th, 1974, a young couple was frightened by the appearance of strange beings in the area around their home, beings that they described as robots. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am just another tinfoil hat. Welcome to my show. Today, we will be discussing the fascinating, funky case of the St. Cyrille robots. Mr. and Mrs. Lenoir had just arrived home the evening of July 24th, 1974. Home for the young couple meant a house trailer near the town of St. Cyrille, Quebec. Now, apparently, there were other trailer homes in the area, however, none of them were occupied at the time. It was relatively new. They had just been on vacation camping in Florida, and Mrs. Lenoir was tired out, so she went to bed. However, Mr. Lenoir decided to stay up and watch a late show, which ended around 1:15. So this brings us to the very early morning witching hours of July 25th, 1974, when Mr. Lenoir decided to turn in for the night. He got up, got ready for bed, and then heard a triple bang come from outside the home. Just boom, 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 like something heavy falling on the grass. Mr. Lenoir peeked through the curtains on the living room window to see what the heck was going on, and saw a red-orange spherical object levitating over a nearby field. He said that it was so bright that it almost hurt his eyes to look at it. This object ended up being this domed disc with an orange rim surrounded by bright white lights. It appeared to emit yellow beams from the underside, and on the top was this conglomeration of red and white lights. Quite shocked by what he had seen, Mr. Lenoir went to wake up his wife when he picked up on this odd buzzing noise. So he checked out the bedroom window and saw, for all intents and purposes, a robot. He and Mrs. Lenoir, who would see these strange beings in very short order, both claimed that they stood about 6 feet tall, and the first one was about 15 feet away from the trailer. They claimed that this one, as well as the many others which they would later see, appeared to be made out of some sort of metallic material. And they said that they couldn't remember any details about the head, but they did remember that on kind of the main upper part of the body, sort of the torso, I guess you could say, were red glowing horizontal bars, which blinked on and off. They also said that the beings did not touch the ground, but rather levitated or hovered above it. They also said that they moved stiffly and in a way which, well, seemed robotic. Now, the only thing spookier than some headless robot looking in your window is, you probably guessed it, way more than just one single robot looking in your window. Mr. Lenoir went into the living room, peeked out the window, and there he saw three other robots. So this next trio of robots was standing at a nearby trailer, apparently looking as though they were inspecting the wheel. The couple kept peeking out the windows throughout the night to keep an eye on the robots, and at some point throughout the night claimed to see about 15 of these same figures standing single file next to a creek. They stood still in this position for 5 minutes, and then when they turned, the couple claimed that they moved all at once. That's definitely something that we've heard before. The strange beings finally vanished at around 4 o'clock in the morning. However, the Lenoir were not the only people in the area to have odd experiences on that night. A nearby farmer claimed that his dog, which usually alerted to the smallest out of the ordinary occurrence, was found hiding the morning of the 25th. And there were also three so-called saucer nests in the area, these formations where grass appears to be swirled or twisted. Other trace evidence was found in the area near a prefab shed where the robots were seen moving around. Now, this trace turned out to be limestone, and as it also turns out, there was actually a limestone quarry in the area of the Lenoir home. So this is a bizarre little case that really contains quite a few of the patterns we've come to expect from other high strangeness cases. So let's take a look. First of all, as so many times before, I must bring up the concept of perfect timing. Now, not only does a UFO decide to land and emit these robots, apparently, on the very night that the Lenoir couple came home from vacation, but also right at the time that Mr. Lenoir was going to bed after staying up late to watch TV. This concept of perfect timing is seen time and time again in these high strangeness encounters and really brings to mind the old adage of the tree falling in the forest. If a UFO landed and there was nobody around to see it, would it even exist? To me, this concept shows the very human-centric nature of paranormal phenomena. It doesn't seem to be a function all of its own. It seems rather to be a function of our observing of it, a sort of pact between the observer and whatever they're observing. Now, these things also showed up at the veritable witching hour and vanished before daybreak. I checked actually, and around 4:30 in the morning, which is when these things apparently packed up their little robot belongings and left, is the end of night or civil dawn twilight for that area at that time of year. Pre-dawn, but when it becomes light enough to see by. Why is it that so many paranormal entities, whether we're talking about ghosts or spirits or demons, Bigfoot, dogmen, UFOnauts, or robots, seem to prefer this particular time of the dark? As well as preferring the dark wee hours of the morning, these beings found a fairly abandoned place to haunt. While a newly constructed trailer park full of empty prefab homes may not be your classic haunted house, there is something to the notion of abandoned places or empty places being where so many anomalies decide to crop up. Once again, too, we have this very weird concept that the couple, the Lanois couple, watched these things for the span of about 3 hours. Yes, they were peeking at them from behind curtains and trying not to be seen, but seriously, 3 hours is a very long time, yet the face, the whole head in this case, remains conspicuously absent. We can even see that on the sketch made of what they claim to have seen. Due to this fact, these robot like beings then fall very neatly in line with so many other types of faceless beings, which is another one of these cross-field aspects, whether we're talking ghosts, UFO-related entities, or even cryptids such as Bigfoot. One of the most interesting moments of this case for me is the moment where all 15 of these strange beings line up right along the creek. Not only is the inclusion of a waterway in this account definitely of note, anomalies of all sorts tend either to kind of travel by waterways or conversely be stopped by them, but it's this neat and tidy, almost military style display of these beings lined up one right after the other, which gives a sense of orderliness to an otherwise ridiculous sighting of robots. I bring up the term military display because it reminds me of so many descriptions of the fairies of the British Isles being described as marching armies, literally falling into order like drilling troops, or from one account near Penzance, being described as organized in rank and file. Speaking vaguely, the red stripes or bars on the upper bodies of these entities in this case also remind me of the very old-fashioned military uniforms, the likes of which, again, are included in many sightings of the fairies. What's even more interesting is that in this case, the Lanois described the beings as moving all at once. Now, of course, in the very ufological, nuts and bolts conceptualization of their time, given that they referred to these beings as robots and also described seeing effectively a flying saucer, Mr. Lanois believed that the robots were remote controlled. Now, in my opinion, I have mentioned this before many times in regards to different cases. A classic is the Loveland Honeycutt encounter, which saw three strange goblin-like beings turning as one. Again, pretty much the exact same wording used in this encounter. Or in the Cisco Grove incident, in which two apparently different types of humanoids, robots and UFOnauts, and an apparent unidentified craft all responded to fire, despite that they appeared as vastly different things and were vastly different distances away from the witness and the fire. This leads me to believe that when we deal with apparently separate entities, or apparently separate entities and then a craft, it may all, again, just be apparent. It may just be different masks for the same core anomaly. We can't forget either that these robot-like beings were floating above the ground, much like ghosts or the good folk were said to do. The interesting thing is that if we try to shoehorn this case into the purely subjective bandwagon, for one thing, we have two witnesses, which opens up a lot of questions regarding how that information would be shared if it was some sort of shared hallucination. I mean, that would be as anomalous as an actual anomaly. But there were also traces of something. For one thing, the so-called saucer nests in the area, which coincidentally enough tie also to the folklore of fairies, mowing devils, and in more recent times, Sasquatch nests. There was also the guard dog, which was found hiding after alerting to absolutely nothing in the night. Of course, the location of the Lanois home to nearby quarries also brings up one of John Keel's great points. Quarries, like cemeteries and garbage dumps, tend to be frequented by strange beings. Now, in any case, the fact that limestone was literally tracked over the place by these bizarre beings is definitely of note. We also have the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. To further quote, the dog did nothing in the nighttime, and that really was the curious incident. While the Lanois couple were beset with these strange robots, these beings, which apparently were capable of leaving limestone traces, banging on the walls of the house, and possibly causing these so-called saucer nests, the neighbor's guard dog, known for going berserk at the slightest occurrence, merely ran off and hid. They said that it actually even slipped out of its collar to get away from the area. Considering so many cases of dogs going missing around anomalous occurrences, Honestly, it probably wasn't a bad idea. To conclude as well, we also have the intrinsically poltergeistish beginning of this strange narrative. 3 bangs outside of the home. Bangs of any sort immediately conjure the concept of the poltergeist. I mean, the name literally means rumbling or noisy ghost or spirit. And of course, the rapping coming in 3 is by now a trope propagated by the more demonologically inclined of spectrologists. Say that 3 times fast. Though 3 is a powerful, oh my god, I didn't even realize 3 times, say it 3 times fast. 3 is also a powerful number across cultures, belief systems, folklores, mythologies, magical systems, you name it, and crops up with about as much regularity as you could ask for throughout high strangeness encounters. Not to mention that sound also triggered the escalation of this affair. It was after hearing the odd buzzing noise that Mr. Lanois first saw the robotic entities. Not to mention as well that his encounter also started with a strange sound of the 3 bangs, and then was also ushered in by a blinding light. I mean, this is sounding more and more like Revelation every minute. Again, I have to wonder if sound and light are somehow psychological primers for the witnesses, a way for them to perceive something that regularly falls outside of our narrow band of observation. Well, if you enjoyed this episode on the St. Cyrille robots, please like, and if you're new to this field of crop circles, go ahead and subscribe to see what weirdness the future may have in store. Till then, you can keep up with me on my free blog at patreon.com/justanothertinfoilhat. That is where the works cited page is now. So just head on to Patreon. It's on the free part of that. It's not really an app website, I guess you could say. And look up the works cited for this and every other account. And also be sure to tune into the podcast Somewhere in the Skies for not only the very best in anomalous listening, but every other Friday that is the home of the audio versions of Just Another Tinfoil Hat. For today, I am Zelia Edgar, signing off.
Do